Hello everyone, this is week 6 and we are going to start with another new concept in Java, which is graphical user interface programming. This is probably a new concept for you. First of all, I will start with the introduction, what is graphical user interface programming, and then I will start with the concepts from the chapter. And this is chapter 17 from your book. My first aim is to explain you or to clear what is actually the GUI programming and how we do in Java GUI programming. So here first of all I'm going to talk about user interfaces, what is GUI programming, design issues, library, what is a swing, and all these things. Alright, so let's start. Now, until now, what we have done, the programs, we have done the text-based programs or the console-based programs or the character user interface, CUI-based programs. We have not done any GUI-based programs. So, in text-based user interface, the commands are entered from the keyboard. So, for example, if you want to take any number, you take it from the keyboard. There is no proper interaction between there is no proper user interface actually. So in a console program, the system usually controls user actions. For example, you want to enter number of classes, number of students, and then you want to calculate how many students. So this is the normal way that we have been doing till now from Java 1 until now. Most of the modern programs, they use GUI, pronounced as GUI. This is pronounced as like this. So G stands for graphical, U stands for user, I stands for interface, graphical user interface. And until now we were using CUI, character user interface, where we have to enter the commands, or there was no proper interface. So what is graphical user interface? Graphical user interface is not just the characters, but it contains windows, menus, and buttons. Many of you have worked with the DOS operating system, also disk operating system, and Windows operating system. So if you have seen that the Windows operating system is quite graphical, if you want to copy a file, you just click on file and copy and then paste it. That means you don't have to remember the commands, rather you need to click some option on the menu bar and your task is done. Whereas in character user interface, you need to remember each and every command. So this is actually the advantage of the graphical user interface. So graphical user interface is you don't have to enter each and every text, but you have windows, you have menus, you have buttons, you have labels, and all those modern programming designs. User is the person using the program and interface is the way to interact with the program. So graphical elements include window. Window is a portion of the screen that serves as a smaller screen. For example, this is a window. Menu, list of alternatives offered to the user. For example, in Microsoft Word, when you click on file, there is a drop down list. You have many options to select from there. Button looks like a button that can be pressed. Example is when you enter into your Educate SIS system, after entering your username and password, you click on a button. So pressing a button, some action is done. So it looks like a button that can be pressed. Text fields, the user can write something in. So just like in your Educate, you write your username and password in the text field, and just adjacent to the text field are the labels. Labels are the static text which tells you that what you need to enter in this field. So these are some of the elements of the graphical user interface. Alright, so moving ahead. So the previous style of programming that we were using was the list of instructions were performed in order. Next thing to happen is the next thing in the list, and the program performed by only one agent, that is computer. but in the event driven style of programming. Now we are going to follow event driven style of programming. That means some event will occur, some action will be done. Based on that action, some event will be done. So in event driven style of programming, objects can fire events and object can react to events. Events can be like pressing of a button, moving of a mouse, pressing of a key on a keyboard. So these are the examples of the events. Next thing to happen depends upon the next event. So what should happen next depends upon the event that will happen next. So program is interaction between user and computer, a proper interaction. So that is the event driven style of programming. Programs that use graphical GUIs often use event driven programming. So what happens in the event driven programming? A user interacts with the application. This is the modern style of programming. Many times you have happened to log into the shopping website, e-commerce website. So these are all the event driven programming. Clicking on a button to choose a program option, making a choice from the menu, entering text in the text field, dragging a scroll bar, clicking on a Windows close button, the cross button on the top right hand side. Program waits for the events to occur and then respond. For example, in your window you have at the very top left, this is for, you have these three buttons: minimize, maximize and cross button. For example, when you click on this cross button, some event happens, and that event is it closes your window. So program waits for the events to occur. This is an example of the events and then responds. Firing an event, when an object generates an event. Listener, so these are the terminologies that we are going to use. Firing an event, object generates an event. Listener, object waits for the event to occur. Object listens for the event to occur. And event handler, the method that will execute to respond to an event. So for example, when I click on this close button, there will be some method written for this close button that will execute. That is called as the event handler. So principles of graphical user interface design: we need to give time for graphical user interface design and integration, simple and clear layout. We will use the graphic objects and terminology, be functionally intuitive, and it will be visually attractive also. You will like it. It will provide visual and audible feedback. It will be responsive, flexible and customizable. And the benefits of good graphical user interface programs are: it facilitates high user productivity, it has lower long-term cost, it improves the integrity also, improves the reliability, user confidence, and the softwares are in high demand in the market. So what you need to do to write a good graphical user interface application? For writing a good graphical user interface application, you need to have the knowledge of graphics, media, windows, events and multi-threading. So some of these we are going to understand. Alright, now any graphical user interface program has three types of software: graphical component, listener method, application method. Graphical component are the components on your window area. For example, it can be a button, it can be a label, it can be a text box, it can be a menu item. So it makes up your user interface. Listener methods that receive the events and respond to them. For example, button can receive the event and respond to them. Label cannot receive any event. Label is just a static text. Application methods that do useful work for the user. So when event is generated, some method will be called. So they do some work for the user. Now coming to Java, how can you create the graphical user components? So in Java, you can get most of the GUI components. Most of the work has already been done and is contained in the Swing AWT package. AWT stands for Abstract Window Toolkit package. This is the package that we are going to use to create our Swing programs. Now Swing AWT contains Windows, frames, buttons, menus, and many other components. You can get graphical components by constructing the objects of the swing and AWT, listener methods and application methods. They are the Java methods that you can write and invoke from the Java development toolkit. So, to write a GUI application, keep the three types of software separated. So, how are you going to do? You will first of all create a frame. Frame is nothing but our window. On the frame, you can attach a JPanel. So, just like on a window, you are putting a wallpaper, right? So, and on the wallpaper, you are putting the component. So, panel is something like your wallpaper. Frame is something like your window. So, the lowest in the hierarchy is your frame. So, the basic thing you have to create is the frame. On the frame, you can put panel. On the panel, you can put components. So, this is the hierarchy. You have to follow the hierarchy. First of all, you need to create the frame. On the frame, you can put a panel. On the panel, you can put the components. And with the components, you can attach the listener object. So, this is the hierarchy. Now, panel, you may have a panel for some programs. You may not require the panel for some programs. Anyways, when we are doing the programming, we will come to know that how to know whether we need a panel or not. So this is the hierarchy. First we create a frame. Frame is nothing but our window. On the frame we can have a panel. On the panel we can have the components. Components like label, button, text box, text area, and then we can have the listener objects. Now, after creating, we add the listener into the components. Not all the components can have the listener. For example, label cannot have a listener, button can have a listener, or menu bar or menu item can have a listener. Then after adding the listener to the components, we put the components on the panel. Then we put the panel onto the frame. So the hierarchy is create a frame, create a panel, create the component, create the listener. Then add the listener to the component, then add the component to the panel, then add the panel to the frame. So this is the hierarchy that we usually follow while building a graphical user interface. Order is very important. You create it, configure it, add children like the containers, panels, add up to parent if not JFrame or any other frame, and then you add listeners of the events. So order is very important. How to create it? Create it, you make an object of that class. For example, for the button, you make an object, and configure it, you just use the methods related to that component, like be it set text, get text, set text or set title. These are some of the caption. Then you add it. You need to add the panel, we use the add method. Anyways, when we create the full program, you will come to know. Then listen to it, then you have the listener objects. Swing is based on the composite design. There are top level containers. Example is the JFrame, which holds all other swing components. There are intermediate containers like JPanel. So panel is used to place the individual graphical user interface components. It acts as a middle person. Atomic components are like your button, label, your text box, table, and all these. So containment in the hierarchy is, so you have a frame, you have a menu bar, you have a content pane. So this content pane is the area where you can place your components like JPanel, like on the panel you can have text field, you can have button, and all these things. Alright, so this was just the introduction to the swings. Now we are going to start with chapter number 17. Alright, so continuing with the chapter. So the Java AWT Abstract Window Toolkit package, as I told you just now also. Abstract Window Toolkit package is the original Java package for doing the graphical user interface. So original package for doing the graphical user interface programs in Java was Abstract Window Toolkit. So AWT package is an older package designed for doing windowing interfaces. Swings are an improved version. So GUI we have just learned now, it's a windowing system that interacts with the user. It's an improved version of the programming. So AWT was the older package, then came the Swing. Swing can be viewed as an improved version of the AWT. So it's an improved version of the AWT. However, Swing does not completely replace the AWT because some of the AWT classes are replaced by Swing classes, but other AWT classes are needed when using Swing. So you may see that sometimes we require both AWT and Swing package, and sometimes we only require the Swing package. This will be explained to you when we are doing each and every component. I will explain you that this belongs to which package. So you always have to remember Swing or AWT, two packages that we are going to use in our graphical user interface based programming. They are Swing package and the AWT package. Swing is an improved version, whereas AWT was the previous version. Swing graphical user GUIs are designed using a form of object-oriented programming known as event-driven programming. So Swing GUI is based on the event-driven programming. Alright, so moving ahead. Now, what is an event-driven programming? Event-driven programming is a programming style that uses a signal and response approach. That means you fire some event, and when you fire an event, some action is initiated or some method is called. So it is based on the signal and response approach. Now, what is an event? Event is an object that acts as a signal to the another object known as the listener. So event is nothing but an object that acts as a signal to the other object, which is called as the listener. Sending of the event is called as firing of the event. For example, you create a button, submit. Now, this is the object that can listen to the event. Not all the objects can listen to the event. So event is an object that acts as a signal to another object known as listener. So this button can listen to the event. So when this button listens to the event, it will fire some event. That means when you click on it, you have generated an event. Now when clicking on this button will do something will be done. That is called as firing of the event. So the object that fires the event is often a GUI component such as button that has been clicked. This is what I explained just now. Now listener, what are the listener? Listener object performs some action in response to the event. So they perform some action, like for example, you click on the submit. Now what should happen? It should generate sum of two numbers, or it should generate difference of two numbers, or what? Or it should submit your form. A given component may have any number of listeners. There is no limit. You can have any number of listeners for a particular component. Each listener will respond to a different kind of event. For example, if I have a button called submit, I can have an event called click. Now, when I click on it, what this button should do? When I roll the mouse over it, what it should do? So the listener may respond differently to each kind of event, or multiple listeners may respond to the same events also. Exception objects. Exception object is an event also. The throwing of an exception is example of firing an event. Now what is throwing of an exception? Exception is nothing but a user generated error. We call it as a user generated error. We will learn more about the exception handling in the coming chapters. So the listener for an exception object is the catch block. Right now you are not familiar with the try catch or the exception handling. So exception is nothing but for example, when you divide a number by 0. So that is not a compile time error. that is a exception, that is a error in the logic of the program, which you come to know during the runtime. So this is also a firing of an event. So who listens to that exception? There is a catch block. We will learn more about the try and catch block when we come to the exception handling. Event handlers. Listener object has methods that specify what will happen when events of various kinds are received by it. So listener object has functions or the methods when the event is received. So what kind of method has to be generated? So these methods are called as the event handler. Now the programmer using the listener object will define or redefine these event handler methods. We will define or redefine. So component is, for example, a button. It fires an event. The listener object invokes an event handler. That this is nothing but a method that will be invoked. For example, when I click on submit, when I click on button, so event is generated, submit. Now what should happen after I click on this button? So there must be some method that should be generated. That is called as listener object invokes an event handler method with the event as an argument. Event driven programming is very different from most programming seen up to now. So far programs have considered of a list of statements. When the order is changed, whether or not certain actions are performed, like in looping, branching, it was controlled by the logic of the program. But event-driven programming is quite different. In event-driven programming, objects are created that can fire events, and listener objects are created that can react to the events. So objects can fire event and listener objects are created that can react to events. Program itself does not determine what is the flow of the program. So just like now when I give you the programs, you can from the flow of the program you can know what is like the output or something. In event driven programming, the output depends upon which event is fired. So the program itself no longer determines the order in which the things can happen. Instead, the events will determine. So in an event driven programming, the next thing that happens depends upon what event is generated next. In a particular methods are defined that will never be invoked in any program, or there will be methods that will always be invoked. Now let's start with creating our first swing program. So let's start creating, let's start understanding the different kinds of objects that we are going to use for creating our GUI based program. So a simple window can consist of an object of the JFrame class. So first requirement is we need to create a frame or a window. So the frame is an object of the JFrame class. It belongs to the JFrame class. JFrame object includes a border and the usual 3 buttons. So what this frame will include? It will include a border and it will include the usual 3 buttons at the top: minimizing, maximizing, and for closing. JFrame is found in the Java X.Swing package. As I explained in the first slide, that the 2 packages that are used for creating GUI based programming, GUI-based programs are Swing or AWT. So JFrame is a class which is found in the Java X.Swing package. So that means we need to import this packet. Now, when we the first statement to create this JFrame will be we need to create an object of the JFrame class. So we will create an object of the JFrame class. To the JFrame, we can add the components such as buttons, menus, and the text labels. Now, when we have created the components, we need to add them. So how to add them? Object of the JFrame class dot add method in the bracket the object of the component class. Whatever the component you are using, the object of that component, you will put it in the brackets. The last and the most important thing, you need to make your frame set visible is equals to true. If you don't use this property, this method, even if you have done all your program correct, there is no error, your frame will still not be visible. So to make it visible, you need to set the visible property to true always. There are 4 main important properties that you always need to do. I will explain you one by one. So let's first of all understand this program. This program is not a typical style we will use in the Swing program. This is a style I am just going to explain you, but we are not going to follow this style. We are going to follow the other style in all our programs. So first thing is we need to create a frame. Alright. So how to create a frame? Frame is in the Swing package and javax.swing. Alright, let me just create a program for you. Let's just understand this one by one. How to create it. Alright, so let's start with this program. Let me give the same name of the program. This is first Swing demo. Let me just, but I'm going to create the same program in my own way. I'm just going to create a frame in this program. Now in the program which is given over here, they have created a frame, they have added a button, and to the button they have added the action listener, but I will be going step by step. First of all, let's understand how to create a frame. So first, Swing frame. Let me just choose the path where I alright, now frame belongs to javax.swing. So import javax.swing.jframe. Now capitalize and small. You need to keep in mind, always keep in mind the capitalize and small. J and F is capital over here. So JFrame followed by semicolon. I'll create my class, public class, first Swing frame. Alright, now 4 important properties of the frame are its title. You can skip the title sometimes also. Its title, then its height, what should be the size of the frame. Third is default close operation. Now what is default close operation? I will explain you in the methods in the coming slides. And the last property is set visible to true. These are the 4 properties which you need to set, which you always need to set for a frame. So for the creating a first frame, now we need to set its height and width. Height and width is always a number. So let me just create 2 variables, because these variables cannot change their like value. So I have declared them as static final. Any integer value, public static final int height, any integer value. Now let's create the main method. In the main method I will just put all the properties. Public static void main string args. So the first property, we need to set its size. So here first of all I am going to create the object of the JFrame class. So JFrame. Any object you can see. I put it small, that's why it's a error. JFrame F1 is equals to new JFrame. The way you create an object of the class. Now I will set the size. F1 dot set. Now here also you need to make sure of the capitalize and the small words. Now S of size is capital. Set size. I will pass over here the two parameters, width and height. Width, first parameter is width, second is height. I made an error over here, W should be capital. Width and height. Next is default close operation. Now default close operation I am going to explain you in a while. Set default close operation. So please check, keep watching the capitals and the small letters. Alright, now when set default close operation. Now when I click on the cross button of the frame, what the frame should do. This is specified by this line. So I have many methods. I am going to discuss all the methods in a while. One of the methods we normally use is do underscore nothing underscore on underscore close. All this is capital. So you need to understand, you need to remember all these. So next property is, one of the property was F1 dot set title. What is the title? Like on a window when you give a name to your program, the title. So title is, let me just, it takes a string parameter, my first program. Last and very important property is set visible. F1 dot set visible, and you need to make it to true because by default it's false. So if you don't do the last property, there is no error in your program, still nothing will be displayed. Alright, so let's run it. These are the four main important properties. So you might have seen over here this window appears. Now no more writing over here or taking the input over here. This is a swing. This is a window. Now let's understand. So I created an object of the JFrame class because this is called as my frame. So frame has border, frame has minimize button. This is my frame. Frame has maximize button. It's maximized. And frame has the close button. So the four main properties for every frame program that you, a swing program that you are doing: title. Title can sometimes be optional. Set size, default close operation, and set visible. Now title, what title should appear? So for example, my first program, this is appearing over here. If I don't use it, it will be an empty. Set size, how much should be the size for the window when it starts. Default close operation. Now default close operation is the operation that means when I click over here, what it should do. I have specified that it should do nothing on close. So if you see, when I click, it does nothing on close. There are many other methods also. We are going to learn all those methods one by one. Last property is set visible to true. So set visible to true property is required, always required, because if you don't use this property, no frame will be shown to you. Alright, so let me just terminate the program, because do nothing on close. I have many other methods like hide on close or exit on close, something like this. I have many other methods. We are going to do all these methods. I'm going to discuss all these methods in a while. Now see here, my basic idea is if I don't use this this line, this statement, set visible to true. So what happens? My program will not give me an error. So if you see, it's not showing me anything because the property is set to false. That's why it's not showing me anything, because it's set to false. That's why. So every time if I want to show the frame, I need to set this property to true. So now if I run it, the frame appears. Now instead of specifying two variables over here, you can also specify the height and width over here as a number. In the set size, you can specify like 300, 400 or any other number. That's also perfect. So if you see, let's run it again. So the frame appears. So either you declare the variables or you pass the values like this. That's one and the same thing. Now coming to default close operation. Let me first of all explain a few options for the default close operation. Default close operation, I have many like methods for this, for the frame methods, which I am going to discuss. Yeah. Set default close operation. It sets the action that will happen by default when the user clicks the close button. So what are the methods I can have? Do nothing on close, it will do nothing. Hide on close, frame will be hidden. Dispose on close, it will hide and dispose the frame after invoking any registered listeners. Exit on close, it will exit the application. So let's try it. The exit the application, because it's doing nothing, so I have to terminate the program. So let me just write over here, exit on close. Hide on close will hide the window, hide the frame. So now if you see, if I click on this close button, it closes my frame. So these are the methods that you can use for the set default close operation. Now going back to our program, which we were doing, although we are not going to follow this, but I need to explain this. Now if you have seen, I have just created a frame over here. So if you see, these can listen to the event. Now when I am clicking on this close button, I am firing an event. So this is listening to the event and some method is happening, right? So this is called as event driven programming. For example, when I left click the mouse button, it will close. I right click, nothing happens. So firing an event means when I do something, perform some event, some action happens in response to that event. Now if you see, I have just created a frame without any component. I do not have any button, I do not have any text area, I do not have any label or anything. Alright, so let's add a button to this program first of all. So for adding a button, my button is defined in the JButton class. So I have to import a JButton, import, and JButton is in the javax.swing. javax.swing.jbutton. J and B is capital. JButton. Alright, so I am creating a button. This was for the frame. Now again for the button, I have to create the object JButton. B1 is equals to new JButton. Now inside it, on the button, what should be written on the button? I have to provide some text. For example, click me. Now the lines, the statement of the way you write also matters. So I will write over here after setting the size. So after setting the size, or even after before visible true, I have to write these statements. I can make it over here also. Alright, so button has been, I have created a button. Now let's see, is there a change? There won't be any, button will not be shown because I have not added any button on the frame. I have just created a button, but I have not added it. So I need to add it on the frame. So what is my frame? F1. Frame is my F1. F1 dot add method. And what do I need to add? Button 1. What is the name? B1. So now the button has been added. Let's check. If you see over here, the button has been added over here. But when I click on the button, it's not doing anything, right? So it should do something. It should do something. Now what it should do? We have to write an event handler for this. We have not yet written any event handler for this. Now how to write that event handler? We will understand it. Now how to add the action listener? For adding the action listener on this button, I have to first of all create a method of what it should do. And for creating the method, I have to create another class. Although we can make it as an inner class, but that will come after it, which is the normal way we are going to use it. All right. So let me just make it as BListener class. Now my action listener I have. So now when we click on the button with our mouse, it creates an object known as event and sends the event objects to other object. This is called as firing the event. The listener then performs some action. When we say that event is sent to the listener object, we mean that some method is invoked with the event object as an argument. So our swing class definition will normally not contain an invocation of this method. We need to create our swing GUI class definition. So what we need to do over here, we need to do two things. First of all, we need to register a listener and we need to add an action listener. How to register a listener and how to add the action listener. So for registering a listener, each button needs to specify what objects are listener that will respond to events fired by that buttons. That is called as registering the listener. So second, it must define the methods that will be invoked when the event is sent to the listener. Alright, so first of all, let me just create an action listener class. There are many different kinds of components that require different kinds of listener classes, but a button fire event known as action event and which are handled by the listeners known as action listeners. So I need to create a separate class for this. So let's just start creating it. So what will I do over here? Now action listener and action event, I need to import them and they are in the AWT package. Import java.awt.event.action listener. A is capital, L is capital, action listener. Similarly, I need to import the action event also. More on this I will explain after doing the program. They are in the AWT package. Event dot action event. A is capital and E is capital. Action event. So let me create the class public class BListener. Now here, very important point to note. Now it has to call a method action performed. Now, action performed is defined in the interface action listener. So here I will use implements action listener. And then I will override the method action performed, public void action performed. I am going to explain you what I am doing over here. I will make an object of the action event class, action event AE, and then clicking on that button, what it should do, let me just write, it should just exit out of the system. So system.exit 0. Let's just compile it. E should be small here. Now I have to go back to my first Java Swing Frame class and I have to register my button to this action listener class which I have created now. So what will I do over here? I will register an action listener with this. So what was the name of my class? I will create an object of the action listener class over here. My class name is bListener. Listen is equals to new bListener. Now what I need to do, I need to add action listener method to this button. Now clicking on that button, what should be done is defined in this class. So what I have done, I have created an object of this class. Now on button, my button is b1 dot, I will add action listener dot add action listener, and what I should add the object of the bListener class, which is the listen. Now let's check it. Alright, so if you see over here, when I click on this, what this button should do, this should exit out of the system. So clicking on this, it closes it. Now let me explain you what I have done in the program. Let me take you to the bListener program. As you know, as I just mentioned, that for Swing GUI, for firing the event, we need to do two things. First of all, for each button, we need to specify what objects are the listener that will respond to the events fired by that button, and this is called registering the listener. Second, we must define the methods that should be invoked when the event is sent to the listener. So if you see over here, in these two lines, in the first swing frame.java, in these two lines here in this first line, so in this first line, I have created an object of the ending listener class, and I have registered button b1 so that it can receive the event. So I have created an object of this bListener class, and the name of the object is listen, and I have registered my button b1 as a listener to receive the events from the button which is called as the b1. So the second line says that my button is registered as a listener. So which means that it will receive all the events which are fired by my button. Now going to now different kinds of components, they require different kinds of listener. So button fires events known as action events, and they are handled by the action listener. Now coming to over here in this class, public void action performed action event E. What is done over here? Action listener is an object whose class implements the action listener interface. So we have to implement the action listener interface. So for example, the class BListener over here, it implements the action listener interface, and the action listener interface has only one heading which should always be implemented, and that is the action performed. This method is defined in the action listener interface, and we have to override this method. And while overriding this method, we have to pass or create the object of the action event class. So here we need to create the object of the action event class. So now what happens is, if when the user clicks the button B1, it sends an action event to the action listener for the button. It will send the action event to the action listener for that button. So when an action listener receives the action event, the event is automatically passed as an argument to the method action performed, and the method action performed is invoked. And if the event called is AE, then the following the method will take place. So this is how we need to do the action listener, and how to create the to register the action, to register the events, and to create the action listener class. So going back to our program, this was the first program. Although we are not going to follow this way, our way will be different. So going ahead, let me just first of all talk with some more methods. Okay, so we are not going to use this method, although the action listener and the way will be the same, but there will be a little change in doing the program. So this is what we have done. So this is the frame, this is how the frame is created. We have three, this will minimize, this will maximize, and this will close the button, and we have created a button in our program. Some methods in the class JFrame. This is a constructor for the JFrame. This creates an object of the class JFrame. Then there is a parameterized constructor of the JFrame class. So you can pass the title over here using the parameterized constructor of the JFrame class. Set default close operation, I have already explained you what does set default close operation says. Set size sets the size of the frame, and we have already learned in the program. Going ahead, set title, you can either use set title or you can use the parameterized constructor. So you can set the title of your frame. Add method can add the component of the frame. Set layout will define the layout manager, which we will be discussing in our next lecture. J menu bar will set the J menu bar, which we will be discussing in the next lecture. Dispose, it will eliminate the calling frame and all the components are removed from the memory. Any memory that was taken by the frame and its components will be let free. Alright, now coming to the next important topic before we go ahead of creating a program in our own way. Pixel is the smallest unit of space on a screen. Both the size and the position of the swing objects, they are measured in pixels. So just like you have centimeters, inches, liters, kilometers, the unit of measurement on the screen is called pixel. Pixel is nothing but a small dot. The more pixels on the screen, the greater the screen resolution. So a high resolution a screen of fixed size has many pixels, and each one is very small. If a screen has low resolution, it has less pixels. So higher the pixel rate, higher is the resolution. Lower is the pixel rate, lower is the resolution. So therefore, a 2 pixel figure on a low resolution screen will look larger than a 2 pixel figure on a high resolution screen. Alright, so forgetting to program the close window button. If you remember over here, set default close operation, do nothing. This will, if this is not set, then the default action would be done hide on close. If you forget to set this method of the frame, then the default action will be taken, which is hide on close. Hide on close means this will make the window invisible and inaccessible, although it is occupying your memory. So hiding means it is in the memory but it will not be shown to you. So therefore, given a scenario, there would be no way to click or click to end the program. So it's better we always use this set default close operation also. Going ahead, button object is created from the class JButton. We have learned in the program and can be added to the JFrame. The argument to the button constructor is a string that appears on the button which is displayed. So I created in my program JButton b1 is equals to new JButton, and here I added some string text. Then we need to add it on the frame, the object of the frame dot add and name of the object of the button class. So clicking on a button fires an event. The event object is sent to other object called listener. This means that the method in the listener object is invoked automatically and it is invoked with the event object also. So for each button we need to specify what objects are the listener, and we must specify what are the methods that will be invoked when the event is sent to the listener. So these are the two things that I told you just now also. Alright, so this is we created an object of the class, like I created the bListener class and I created the object. So we created an object of the listener class, and to the button we added add action listener method, and we passed the object of the listener class as an argument. So above a listener object named button here is created and registered as a listener for the button. That means what type of action will it be performing. Different kinds of components require different kinds of listener classes, and they can fire different kinds of events also. So here what we have done, we have just clicking on the button, it should exit. It can perform many other actions also. So the ending listener class defines action performed method as above. When the user will click on the button, an action event is sent to the action listener. Then the ending listener object button here is the action listener for the end button. The action listener button here receives the action event as the parameter E to its action performed, which is automatically invoked, and E must be received even if it is not used. Now let's understand all these events according to our program, since I changed the name of the classes. Alright, so let's read it. Ending listener class. I don't have ending listener class, I have bListener class. So my bListener class has the method action performed. So when the user clicks the end button, so for us, when the user clicks the button B1, when the user clicks the button B1, an action event is sent to the action listener. So when we click on the button, an action listener is sent to this class because we have registered our button. The ending listener object. Now who is the listener object? For us we have the listen object which belongs to the bListener class. This object listens to the event that is fired by our button B1. Now the action listener button here receives the action event. So the action listener object, which is the listen, it receives the action event as the parameter E to its action. For us it's AE. We have defined over here AE. It receives as a parameter as AE, and hence it performs this method. So this is how the firing of the event occurs. Alright, so moving ahead. When the action performed method is implemented in an action listener, its header must be the one specified in the action listener interface only. Public void action performed, action event, and we will make any object. It can be any, whether it is called E or something does not matter as long as it is used consistently. GUI programs are often based on a kind of infinite loop windowing system. If the user never asks the windowing system to go away, it will never go away. So we must write somewhere in the button system.exit, so that whatever the space or the memory my frame program is occupying, it should be released. Now let's create a better version of our Swing GUI program. We will create a better version of this. Now what are the changes we are going to make it? Let's check it. Let me go to the program. So normally this will be the way which we are going to follow. Either you define the two variables over here. Okay, I go with the same way. Now over here, what I will do, I will always extend my class from the JFrame, so that I don't have to make any object of the JFrame class. This I am doing so as to skip this statement, So always this is the way that we are going to follow in all our programs, not the previous one. So please listen to this very carefully. So we will always extend our class from the JFrame class. JFrame is the parent class. Alright, so you can define over here height and width as the static variables. Now what I am going to do in the public static void main, now since I have extended from the JFrame class, no need for doing this, no need for creating the object of the JFrame class. So all these things which I have done in the public static void main, I am not going to do in the public static void main. Rather what I will do, I will create an empty constructor of my class. So public first swing frame, I will create an empty constructor. So what I am going to do over here, to the empty constructor, I will call super. Now if you can recall the frame methods going over here, if you can recall super, what super will do? It will call the constructor of the parent class. Now since I can call it two ways. If I have written just the super without any parameters, that means it will call the parameterless constructor. I can use super and pass the title over here also. I will do it. First of all, let me just complete by this way. Alright. So super means I am calling the parameterless constructor of the parent class. I have to do it. Now instead of this F1, just remove this F1 because no need to create the object. Just set title, set default, set size, and here I will pass over here width and height, width comma height, set default close operation, exit on close, whatever you want to do. Then I have created the button. Now one more change, no need to create the object of the action listener class also. So when I am adding the action listener, here I am going to create an object of the class. So I will use new B listener. I have already created new B listener. Then I will add the button. No need for F1. Now what I will do, I will just remove this line. I will create another program. Let me just compile it. It's compiling. It does not have any main method. So what I have done, my program will extend from the JFrame class. I will create the constructor of my class and pass all the methods over here. Set title, set size, set default close operation, create a button, add the action listener. Now how to add the action listener? In the bracket, just write new and the name of your action listener class. It will create an object. And then add the button. That's it. Now we need to create our main class because we don't have the main class. So swing demo, public class, swing demo, public static void main, string args. Now what I will do over here, if you can recall just now, I haven't set the set visible property of the frame over here. I will set the set visible property of the frame in my main class always. This is the way that we are going to follow always in our programs because this is the more defined way. So we are going to create the object of this class. First swing frame, fs is equals to new, and then I will set the visible property fs dot set visible to true. Now let's just run it. What's the difference? Yes. Okay, let's just run it. So it's the same. Click. Alright, now when I created the constructor, instead of using the set title, you can pass the title over here. You can use a parameterized constructor, my first program. Alright, so let's just run this program now. If you see my first program, so there either you can use like that or either way you can use it. You use set title, super as the parameterless constructor, or super with the title. That's up to you. So we are going to follow this way for creating our programs. Alright, going ahead. So this was the better version of our GUI program which we have just created now, a better version. So we use the super keyword, the parameterless constructor of the parent class, which is JFrame. Alright, we have done this. Okay, so this is the way. Now label. Label is an object of the class JLabel. Text can be added to the JFrame using a JLabel. The text for the label is given as an argument. Now label is nothing but the static text. So you can have a label added to your frame also. Now how to add the label? Let's add a label also to this. Label will not have any action listener because action listeners you will add only to the button and the menu items, right? So text fields, text areas, labels, they do not have any action events associated with them. So again, JLabel is a class defined in the Java Swing. So what will I do? Import javax dot swing dot JLabel, LABEL. So I will add over here. Let me just create over here. I will explain you the problem also, what the problem we are going to face over here. My first program with label. So as usual, I will create an object of the JLabel class, JLabel. L should be capital. Make sure of the capital and small letters. L1, whatever name you can give, any name of the object, J label. Now the difference now here you have to pass over here any static text. For example, enter your name. We have created the label. Now we will add the label. Add L1. Let's check what happens to our program. Does it shows both the object or it shows only one object? Let's try to run it. Only a button is showing, label is not showing. Okay, I will explain you the reason, because the component which is added last will be displayed. Okay, wait, from here let me just add it over here. Now let's just check it. Let's run it. Alright, label is displaying over here. Now if you see, button has disappeared, only label is showing. So that means we conclude that we can add only one component, either label, either button or text area or menu or something like this. Only one component, because if you see, when I added label, the button disappeared. When the button was added, label was not showing. Because now this is the problem. It's not actually that this is the limitation. We have the layout managers. We can add multiple components. This will be covered in our next lecture. So this is how you can add a label. Now why it is showing a label? The component which is added in the end will be displayed. Because it is added first, it won't, because this is overriding this actually. So if you see, the label is displaying now, button is not displaying. This is how you can add the label. Now if you see, you cannot click on the label or you cannot do anything with the label. So label is just a static text for conveying the information. So this is how you can add the labels also. Going ahead. Alright, now color. This is the last topic for today's lecture. Color is an object of the class color. The class color is found in java.awt package. So color is found in java.awt package. There are constants in the color class that represent a number of basic color. So a frame cannot be colored directly. Instead, a program can color something which is called as the content pane. We cannot color the JFrame, rather something called the content pane. Content pane is nothing inside of a frame, and we can color the content pane of a frame. So what is the method for coloring it? Get content pane method dot set background method, and in this method we are going to pass a color. Alright, so let's check it. Let's check the program. So what are the color constants? Color dot black, blue, cyan, dark gray, these are all the colors defined in the AWT package. If you see the name of the constants, it's in the capital letters. So this is our color. Let's try to do it. I will try to do it in the same window. What I need to do over here is I need to import the color package. I need to import the colored package. Import java.awt.color. C is capital. So color belongs to AWT package. Label, button, frame belong to Swing. Action listener, action event, they belong to AWT. So you need to remember which belongs to which packet. Alright, so we are going to do the color over here. Okay, so I will do the changes to this program. I have just added a color. So the method is, let's just go and check the method. This is a different program. I will explain the program also given over here. Get content pane dot set background color, and in the bracket you have to write the color name. So method is get content pane dot set background, B is capital, C is capital for color, color dot, let's make it blue, color dot blue. So what it will do, it will color the background of our frame as blue. Let's just check it. Content pane, it's content T. Get content pane, it's a method. Alright, let's run the main program. So if you see, my frame has been colored as blue. This way you can try different colors. For example, if I make it over here color dot red, any color you can try, and the constants are given to you. You can refer to the slide. Alright, so this way we can add the colors to our content pane. Let me explain you the program which is given over here in the book. I am not going to run the same program. Now in this program what they have done, they have created two constructors for the program. The class name is colored window extends JFrame. As usual, they have defined the height and the width. Now they have created a parameterized constructor, and they are passing over here the object of the color class. Same way they have just used the super constructor for the JFrame, set size, set default close operation, and then get content pane, set background color. So then they have created a label. Then one more parameterless color, and for this they have defined color dot pink. This color dot pink, now what it will do, it will invoke the parameterized constructor of this class. So we have learned in the previous chapter. So this, it can invoke the constructor also. So usage of this, so it will invoke the parameterized constructor, and it will change the color to pink. Okay, now in the main class what we have done, we have created two objects, W1 and W2, one for the parameterized and another for the parameterless. And for the parameterized we have passed the color as yellow, and when you run you will have two windows, one will have yellow and one will have the pink color. So so this is how it will this will be the output of the program. Alright, so I will end my program, my lecture over here. We have learned how to create a basic swing program, and how to add the component like button and label, and then how to register the event to the button. We cannot add events to all the components. As I specified, only to the specific components we can add the events. So this was now in the next lecture we are going to continue with the next more advanced parts of it, like the containers, layout manager, text area, text boxes, all these methods we are going to talk about. So thank you so much.